Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
As we stand on the brink of an ever-evolving technological landscape, it's imperative to consider the vital role that human beings play in the workforce. While machines continue to advance and take on more tasks that were previously done by humans, it's crucial to acknowledge the unique qualities that only we possess. After all, while AI can process data at lightning speed and analyze complex patterns, it cannot replicate the warmth of a smile, the power of empathy, or the art of persuasion. So, what does this mean for managers? It means that it's high time and the most essential thing for managers to hone their human touch skills to stay relevant and impactful in their roles. Join us as we explore the skills that managers will need in the age of artificial intelligence. Hello listeners, welcome to another episode of the Vantage Influencers Podcast, where we explore a wide range of HR topics that are sure to grab your attention and inspire you. I am your host, Sushmita, and today we'll be having a conversation on the topic of human touch in HR in the age of AI. And for the same, I have with me Mimi Brooks, the founder and CEO at Logical Design Solutions. Hi, Mimi.
Hi, Susmita. How are you?
I'm very good, Mimi. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving your invaluable time and joining us today in this episode. So before we dive into today's topic, the human touch, what skills will managers need in the age of artificial intelligence? Could you kindly walk us through your corporate journey so far?
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for asking. My corporate career started back in Bell Labs and AT&T many years ago when AT&T and the labs were really leading in human-computer interaction design. Very early on, we referred to it as human performance engineering back then, and it was the precursor to human factors engineering and what we call now, as you would expect, the employee and user experience. So I have a long history in trying to juxtapose the needs of the business and business strategy to the enablement of people, where technology is a critical enabler. And as a result of that, I started LDS, Logical Design Solutions, in order to be able to work with more organizations, in this area. And in the last 5 to 7 years or so, my focus has acutely been on organizational transformation. And it started with working with large organizations on digital transformation. And we said early on, look, digital transformation really is about people, a lot less about the technology and more about people. So it's an organizational transformation idea. And that's what we do today, if that helps.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us, Mimi. You have surely gained a lot of insights and skills along the way. So before we move on into our topic today, before anything else, Mimi, we would love to know your perspective on the role of AI, that is artificial intelligence, in the workplace and how it has affected managerial functions.
So I think we're really starting to see, AI and other frontier technologies affecting the true work of work in businesses now. I think that for many years, some vertical markets being more progressive than others. So I'll just normalize that for the purposes of the discussion. A lot did impact to human work and jobs, I think, was on the fringe. The obvious things got automated, the obvious jobs got impacted, but I still think that represented a small percentage of the total of work as we know it today. And I think that now what we see is this, kind of facing the wave head on, we're really staring it down. And I think there's not a business that I know of or a company that I work with that don't see, this impact as a here and now idea. So to me, we've moved digital from the fringe to digital at the core. And in the process of doing that, frontier technologies like AI, are taking truly, center stage in our strategies.
Right.
The execution of them, Susmita, might be variable from company to company, but the concern of them, the factoring of them, I think is of high priority to everyone.
So we can all see that AI has become like highly prevalent in workplaces, especially in management, if we talk about it, providing valuable insights and automating routine tasks of managers. But to create value in an AI-informed workplace, Mimi, it is the manager who needs to be strategic and intentional in their approach to make AI implement in a perfect way. So it's extremely important that managers ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly, and that the benefits of AI are shared across all the levels of the organization. So in this context, the question that arises is that how can managers do it? Like how they can create new and relevant value in an AI-informed workplace?
Well, I think it's a great question. If I could give just a bit of context to my answer first.
Sure.
I would say that, Susmita, it seems to me that what's happening is that we have organizationally in our organizational systems and structures, including management as one of those structures, we have one foot in our prior old, hierarchies and managerial practices, and one foot in our new world, with the weight still being on the left side than on the right side, because people are straddling, the transition from, long instantiated managerial practices and systems show what clearly, need to be, transitioned in order to be successful in our new digital age. And in that context, managers are a critical catalyst to the to-be state. Right, so, Sumita, they're critical. People still follow them. People still expect to get direction from them. They expect to understand.
Consider them the ideals.
Exactly. They expect them to action strategy. So I think that the role of the manager is changing, and the line of sight that they need to follow, is truly the business strategy, and asking the question, how do we create new value in alignment with that business strategy? And I think that when managers see that their challenge is new value creation, Susmita, it's a new value creation challenge, right? In new organizational constructs that you would expect to be flatter, more integrated, more peer-to-peer, more democratic, et cetera, right? So we've got to get managers into these new shoes. We've got to get them feeling comfortable that they can lead here, which is a dramatic departure, from the command and control managerial practices from which many of them have come. So, of course, our digital natives and, other people who are in leadership, even early leadership positions, are less encumbered with prior practices. But either way, we need to help managers step into these new roles that make them, really both, critical and relevant.
Right. So for managers, Mimi, who appreciate the technology, the AI's capabilities and limitations, they are better positioned already to capitalize on its benefits, while minimizing risks. But managers who resist or dismiss the possibilities of AI, on the other hand, may find themselves, falling behind maybe. So they may completely overlook the possibilities to optimize the various business processes, as well as they struggle to attract and retain the personnel in a labor market that is increasingly valuing AI skills and experience. So, Mimi, can you foresee a scenario in which these type of managers who are at risk of being left behind by breakthroughs in AI?
Oh, for sure. But, absolutely, I see that, just like I see the same effect on workers who don't adapt.
Right.
So managers, our workers, including managers and leaders, need to adapt. And the question is, in what context do they adapt, since they're people leaders versus, organizational leaders versus wherever. So listen, when I think about it, Susmita, I think that, being digitally conversant, understanding, the business advantages and applications of frontier technology going forward, is a table stakes idea. Absolutely. But I think that the challenge is less a technology challenge and more of a leadership challenge for managers, to be able to rally and motivate a workforce that works very differently. That these new teams need to be more autonomous. We know they need to be cross-cultural, cross-discipline, cross-functional. This means that our managers need to know how to lead and motivate teams like that, which is a whole lot about removing obstacles and reducing risk for them so that momentum can be established and maintained. So I'm concerned about, managers that, don't reinvent themselves, not just in their knowledge of the technology and its potential application, but in the whole organization schema that is going to need to be operationalized to make it all work together.
Yeah, so it means it's not just the maybe you can say reskilling or getting technically advanced, getting technically educated, but it's also about the mental preparedness for to foresee things and to accept the truth that the workplace is changing.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly how I see it. And so I would say, to your point, skills is a component of it, absolutely, but equally valuable will be practices, will be the ability to forge relationships, to negotiate to good outcomes that are the sum of everyone's best thinking and ideas, because the change that's needed and the value creation that's expected is exponential, right? I mean, that's the whole game we're playing here, Susmita, is it's about new value creation, and that new value creation is exponential because that's what machines offer us.
Yeah.
They offer us learning on multiple timescales, right? And that multiple timescales of, human performance and machine performance, and the more that we can get it to coexist is what creates exponential value. So the question is, how do we manage in environments where exponential value is the expectation? And that's what I'm pointing to.
I was going through this very important data about collective intelligence where AI and managers work together. Emotional intelligence of human and AI comes together. We'll get into it. But before that, another question, Mimi. Somewhere I think that as AI continue to become more widespread, there is a risk that managers will become overly reliant on technology to make important decisions. However, in this reliance may affect their human touch while making decisions, right? I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but please share your take on how can managers, ensure that they maintain a human touch in their decision making, even when they are using AI tools?
No, I think it's a very big issue, and as you know, it's the basis of a lot of the discussion that's going on now in terms of ethics associated with these tools and platforms, or even the explainability of them, right? So we're kind of all hunting in the same area when we're pointing to this. So it would be hugely detrimental, I think, for managers to only be able to fly by their instruments, right? Because that's what we're saying, right, Susmita, is that they won't bring enough value in their personal human judgment and experience in order to really leverage and not in terms of the machine contributions to new work. Right. So I think that that managers who can only fly by new instruments not only put themselves in a particularly risky situation in terms of value to the business, but I think it also exposes the business to real risk.
Yeah. So, Mimi, I think you will agree with the fact that while machines or AI may be better suited to certain tasks, humans still excel at some tasks that require empathy, communication, and interpersonal skills. More specifically, if we talk about emotional intelligence. So I would like to know your perspective on the role of emotional intelligence that play in managing in the age of AI.
Well, that's a great question. And of course, I think that these human only skills, empathy, relationship building, customer centricity, and everything that we mean by 360, customer centricity, et cetera, are critical ideas. I like the idea of relational intelligence, just if I had to give it a label more so than emotional intelligence. I think that it's a better description of, the people to people, side of this that is as important as people to machine. So a lot of the human skills, the durable skills that we're talking about that are needed in the future state, is this ability, to bring good relational intelligence and decision making into the equation so that we can meet people where they are and recognize that our workers, have a lot of prerogative in the future state. Our workers have a lot of choices in the future state, rightfully so. And as those prerogatives, affect the work that they do every day, we better make sure that we've developed, relationships with them that are win-win.
Yeah. Definitely. Really a good answer, Mimi. So moving forward, if we talk about redesigning the workplace, like in order to keep up with the changing business models, it's not enough to just hire new people or train people with new skills. We need to also rethink and redesign the way the whole work is done, isn't it? So this is an ongoing process that requires business leaders and managers to be really proactive in planning and preparing for these changes. So they need to be willing to ask tough questions about how jobs will be, to adapt in response to these changes. So how can businesses cultivate through renewing work design, according to you, Mimi?
I think that this is probably one of the biggest challenges for HR, Susmita, that I see. And I also see it as one of the biggest opportunities, sincerely, because if we think about organizational design, as being an epicenter skill of HR organizations, of people capability organizations, whatever, we might refer to our function these days. We have to see organization design, or OD, at the center of our value proposition for the business. And I think there's a huge question today in companies, that is asking, who's going to design the new work? Who's going to design the new organizational structures, and who's going to design the new work? And I think they're less about jobs and more about work that is flexible, that enables people with a skill set to move fluidly across work, to pick a lot of the work that they think they can contribute to optimally, and to be able to, be fluid in, how we think about people's roles. So this role flexibility idea, that I think replaces job descriptions, job structures, rigid roles that are limiting to our human capacity. So we really do need to redesign work as we know it, and we need to design it with these contexts in mind, that work is really moving more towards experiences and skill-based structures, right? And as organizations truly become more agile, we have to design work that supports this type of flexibility and human choice.
True.
Yeah.
True. It's in fact interesting to even think of what our organization will, how we would work in the coming maybe 10 years. I know there will be changes that we can't even think of, maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you think about how much of a change it's been for us in just dealing with work location flexibility, Susmita, which is really what our remote and hybrid work is all about. Mm-hmm. And of course, its genesis was quite traumatic. So I don't want to, minimize the big triggers that got us here. However, just the very basic idea of location of work has been a discussion for quite a while now. And still there's not commonality in how, businesses and leaders think about that, or even have long-term plans for it. So, now add in the other factors that you're talking about, well-being, technological adaptation, new social contracts, et cetera. It goes on. We really need to take this from the top down instead of from the bottom up. I think that's a big point, Susmita, that I encourage our clients to do, is to try to take the change from the top down than to be reactive to these forces from the bottom up, because the change is pretty wholesale. It's pretty wholesale. And while it's not going to happen overnight, we should be planning for it.
Definitely. I think it's a big challenge for managers, and all they need is to be on the tip of their toes for all that is coming up.
I like North Star ideas, Susima. I think it's hard for us to find where to focus our attention and time. I think we could agree that we're all short on time and attention these days, despite our work hours and the technology advantages we already have, et cetera, which means I think we need to pick our purpose carefully and make sure that we're spending, a balance of time, between operational excellence, things that we do, and reinvention, things that we must do. So I'm concerned that that we're getting caught in a capacity quagmire. We can't get our managers the time that they need to think about and plan for the change. You hear what I mean? Because they're so overwhelmed day to day in dealing through the chaos that they don't have time to stop and think about how the short-term game becomes the long-term game. So I'm a bit concerned about this overwhelming situation that I see a lot of managers in organizations in transition in. And I think we need to help them find ways, to do this balancing idea so that more time is given to playing the long game, and not 100% of our effort is dealing with this day-to-day chaos. And I feel that my clients would describe that as having a capacity problem. And I think that's pretty acute right now. Does that resonate with you when I say that?
Definitely. It means a lot.
Yeah, it's a big problem. So I think it's a bit of our challenge is, managers are running like, 100 miles an hour here, just trying to keep up day to day. But, where is the time, to reinvent and to think about the future state coming from?
Sure. Great answer once again, Mimi. So it was a privilege to have you as a guest on our podcast, Mimi, seriously. And I look forward to staying in touch and perhaps, collaborating again in the future. But for our audience, would you like to tell how they can reach out to you?
They can reach me on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. Also, our website at www.lds.com. It's got more information on LDS and easy ways to get to us if anyone has an interest. So I'd be glad to do that. And Sushima, thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me on. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, it's time to say goodbye. But before that, let me take a moment to express my heartfelt appreciation to you for being a guest on our podcast today. Your insights and expertise on the topic today were simply outstanding and made for an incredibly, engaging discussion that our listeners will definitely cherish. But what really stood out for me was your warmth and sincerity that, stayed intact all throughout our conversation. So thank you once again for your participation and for making our podcast a truly memorable one. Mimi.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.